Hello and welcome to another episode of Wheel of Horror, the podcast where two best friends spin a wheel once a week. It chooses the horror movie, and they discuss it. Today we're talking about 1981's The Funhouse, which was directed by Tobe Hooper. I'm your co-host Alec, and filling in for Eric is the one, the only, Joe Testa.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Welcome back, Joe. Yeah, we just did Scream 6, so you're back to back. I love it.
Always a pleasure. Glad to be here. This one I feel like has been a long time coming. I remember it may have been like right in the beginning of when I first started doing these. I feel like I mentioned, one of these times I want to do the Funhouse.
Dude, you've been talking about this one for a long time, so I'm so excited we finally get to talk about it. I really enjoyed it, but before, we kind of talk about the actual movie, I want you to set the stage of the first time you saw this film, because I'm sure it's going to be a fun little story.
Oh no, I'm going to disappoint you.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah. Honestly, like unlike most of the movies that we cover, I didn't grow up with this one. I certainly didn't see it in theaters. It came out a little bit before I was born.
Right.
I think I caught up with this one. It was one I would catch on TV here and there, but I don't think I saw it in its entirety until like the years where you would get Netflix by disc. I know I'm going back some ways, but back when you would just fill up your list with movies you hadn't seen, and The Funhouse was on that list, and I got the disc in the mail, and really just. I don't know. I really loved it, and it's become kind of a favorite over the years.
Dude, I really thought you were going to say, yep, me and my friends, we'd watch this in the basement, and, we loved, the little kids' room in the beginning reminded me of my room. That's literally in my mind. I'm watching it I know, Joe. I know what's going to happen. So, okay, all right. I was completely subverted.
That should have been the story. And had I discovered this movie younger, I would have been over the moon for it. My friends too. I don't know why this one wasn't on our radar. I feel like this one wasn't, one of those staples on USA or TNT like a lot of other horror movies were at the time. But yeah, this one was just it got by me, and I caught up with it late.
Okay. Yeah, no, very interesting. I mean, hey, it was my first time seeing it at 33, so I'm up there now. But yeah, dude, this was, I didn't know anything about this. I knew Tobe Hooper directed it, and obviously I really love Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Salem's a lot, and Poltergeist. I love those. But the poster, the one that I'd seen, I thought it was about a clown. My mind was okay, I bet it's some creepy house, and there's a killer clown there, and nope, totally different movie than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, I don't know where that, what the inspiration is for that poster art. I think it's really striking. I kind of remember it, as a VHS tape I would pass at the video store, but never picked up. But yeah, I don't know what that poster is all about. But instead of a clown, we get, I don't know what we get.
Oh my God. Yeah, seriously. What is he? I mean, this movie to me it felt kind of like if the Hills Had Eyes mutants kind of got their shit together a little bit. They're like, hey, we can get a traveling carnival going, but we're still freaks. Well, I guess the only one that was really a freak what's his name? Gunther? Was that it?
I don't know his name somehow. All the times I've seen this movie, does he even have a name?
I'm looking it up now. Yeah, it's Gunther Twilbunt, the monster.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I refer to him as the monster or the creature. But, it's funny you brought up Last House on the Left. That was definitely on my mind. Obviously, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But do you consider this a slasher movie? Because, when I was watching it, I was out of the big franchises, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, this might be one of my favorite slasher movies from that era. But then I was like, you know what? Is it a slasher movie? Because it doesn't follow that Halloween template. It's not about some tragedy that happened years ago and now it's the anniversary and kids are getting picked off one by one. It's more of the kids in the wrong place at the wrong time. But then I was thinking, well, Friday the 13th is kind of that. So I just went down a kind of rabbit hole thinking what subgenre do you put this in?
I know. Well, that's the thing. When it starts off, you're like, it's just like a Halloween Psycho ripoff. Like literally, it's like the mask looks exactly the same. The POV, it's in a shower. You're like, what are we doing here? It almost felt like a Student Bodies, like a spoof almost. But then you're right. It almost kind of has that Last House on the Left feel where it's like they're going into a situation. It's not necessarily dangerous, it's just a fun house or whatever. It's like these teens are going off and doing something. They're smoking weed. I think they're drinking, and then bad stuff just happens to them. But there wasn't like in Halloween or Friday the 13th. There's like you're right. They're revisiting a tragedy from the past that comes into play now. This just seems like by happenstance more similar to Hills Have Eyes or Last House on the Left, where like a fly to a web sort of thing. Like you're going into their domain by choice.
Yeah. And I'm usually not a stickler about, well, this is this subgenre and this is that. Like, I really don't care about things like that. But I was looking at like lists lately, because this is what I do, of like underrated slasher movies. And The Funhouse wasn't on any of them. So people must not lump this in with a lot of other slasher movies from that era. And this is coming out, I think, in 1980, which was right in the heyday, or maybe 1981, still right in the thick of it, with all the the Halloween and Friday the 13th ripoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that probably like would set it aside is just like Tobe Hooper's name, probably, and just being like from the director of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. People are probably like, oh, this is gonna be different than just like a random slasher in 1981, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know though, because all the other ones like Halloween, Friday the 13th, those are, they know, the April Fool's Day and Valentine's Day, My Bloody Valentine, they all kind of revolve around holidays. This one's more ambiguous, and it's kind of cool because like I'm sure I had these growing up, these like traveling carnivals or whatever that would set up in town for like a couple days or whatever, a year or whatever. Did you have those down? You were in Southern Connecticut, so you guys have those?
Yeah, we definitely had carnivals in the summer. Like, they would usually be in a church parking lot.
Right.
And they were a lot like the one in this movie, except ours certainly never had like a stripper tent like this carnival has.
Definitely not that. Not either, or the freak show stuff. We didn't have that kind of stuff either, like two-headed cows and stuff.
No, definitely no freak shows. Well, I mean, no organized freak shows like this.
Yeah, so I like the idea of it. This is kind of like something that, I mean, maybe this does happen. Like, they go from town to town. I mean, before the internet and stuff like that, and if they had enough like interest in killing people, they could. Like American Horror Story Freak Show. That's kind of what they did in that, a little bit.
Yeah, I almost find this, the premise, we'll get into it. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but when the shit hits the fan, I almost find it scarier than your standard slasher movie, because it seems so much more plausible. It's just like you see some shit you weren't supposed to, and now they're after you. That just freaks me out. It reminds me of the movie Green Room or something.
Ooh, that's that newer one, right? The Eli Roth one? Oh, no, it's Green Inferno.
No, you might be thinking Green Inferno. Yeah,
that's
but
right.
Green Room's from a few years back. It's about a band who they're at a club and they witness a murder.
Yeah, because I mean, that's the thing. Why were they sticking around though to watch the murder? There's like the group of teens. We're I don't know. We're getting pretty ahead of ourselves. I want to kind of walk into that.
If I may, I'd like to go back to the opening scene, because obviously I just love this. I mean, it's like this just love letter to Psycho and Halloween and Italian horror movies too, because the would-be killer has on the black leather gloves, which is a staple of Italian giallo cinema. So yeah, obviously when I saw this for the first time, it's hard not to kind of love this, and especially happening only a couple of years after Halloween. There's this kind of love letter to it. It's pretty crazy. Like, you would see things like this in the 90s, but seeing this kind of meta opening scene is really cool. And the kids' room, could we just talk about the kids' room for a second?
Yeah.
Because it's just like the kid in Salem's Lot, which we talked about.
The masks.
Yep, the masks. He has all the Universal monster posters, and that was actually one of the benefits of making this movie for Universal Studios, is they got all this merch. And later on, you see The Bride of Frankenstein on the TV. So Yeah, I love that connection. Like in this opening scene, we get kind of reminded of all the classic Universal monsters, and then later we meet like white trash versions of them. Like the main creature is wearing a Frankenstein mask, and the magician is in a Dracula outfit.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, well, that's I like the foreshadowing of seeing that big Frankenstein's monster poster, and then yeah, later on the creature's covered in that too. I love that. So I was so confused at first. I was like, what the hell is this thing? What is this thing? It's just a big monster dressed up as Frankenstein's monster. I was like, what's the point of this? But we'll get to that. Yeah, so I love the kid's room. That was really cool. The little boy goes into then we don't know it's a little boy. We think it's an actual murder. Goes to stab a naked woman in the shower, and it's a fake rubber knife. But also, like, dude, I mean, I don't have an older sister, but I don't know if I'd be going into the shower when she's in there and she's like 18. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
No, definitely. I had an older sister, and I was this horror obsessed kid. And the kid's name is Joey, which is really funny.
Oh yeah.
So I had a lot in common with this kid, but no, that definitely would have been off limits.
Yeah, I was like, what are you doing, dude? But anyway, so so she's 18. She's going on a date with he's like 30 in this movie, but she's going on a date with him, a double date to this carnival. And once they get there, it's kind of just like everything's off. Like, it's not like we don't really know what to grasp onto, like what's actually going to happen or whatever. But like we meet that weird fortune teller lady. We keep hearing that other woman walking around being like, God's watching you. Just like everybody's creepy, but nothing's really bad is happening, you know?
One of my favorite parts is Joey, the kid. He sneaks out through his window because he wants to go to the carnival, and some guy in a truck just pulls up alongside him and asks him if he wants a ride, and then the guy just pulls a gun on him and just laughs hysterically. I always found that so just like odd and funny. Like, I don't know. There's something about just like Tobe Hooper movies where it's just like, don't trust anybody. No, not hitchhikers, not men in trucks, not people making chili. Nobody.
Yeah. Even in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they pick up a hitchhiker, and of course he starts cutting himself in the hand and shit. Yeah, dude, you're right. Yeah. So that was weird, and then so then he just gets to the carnival, and we don't see that guy again, right?
Yeah, no, that's what's so strange about that little moment. Yeah. Every time I watch this movie, I'm always surprised that the kid doesn't play a bigger role in maybe like rescuing his sister. I always feel like that's what that opening scene was setting up. This brother and sister are at each other's throats, but, he'll do something good to help her. But that's not where this goes. And I actually found out why. I was watching an interview with the producer, and this movie takes a while to get going, which I never even really noticed, but it isn't until like 40 minutes into the movie where we get the inciting incident.
Right.
For me, there's plenty to keep you entertained throughout, but apparently the studio was worried that it's slow, and the whole opening scene with the brother was done after production. It was like added to the movie.
Huh.
And that's kind of the reason why the brother doesn't really play any part in the story, because that whole prologue was a reshoot.
So the prologue was a reshoot, but then also the ending must have been, right? Because the ending was so weird with the kid. Like he gets like kidnapped, brought into like a medical thing. His parents are there, but they're like zombies basically. They're like, no, but your little boy will never sneak out again. Like everything was so weird, dude. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, and I would think maybe everything involving the kid might have just been inserted, because they added this whole prologue. So they probably figured, well, we might as well just do a little more with him. I'm not 100% sure about that, but yeah, that's something I just found out.
I thought his tongue was cut out. Like, I thought something happened to him, because like they're like, he's not talking. It's like, and then they just walk him into the car, and then that's it. And I was like, wait. And the guy's being so weird who, like, called his parents, like, it was so hard for me to call you. I was like, how did you do that, actually? Like, what the fuck is happening right now? Okay.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot more sense that was just brought in out of nowhere. Okay. The two-headed cow thing, like, that made me, like, kind of uncomfortable. Like, you would never see something like that in a movie nowadays. Like, it would be, like, either CGI or it just wouldn't be in that. But to see an actual, like, cow with a cleft palate and 2 heads and stuff. Like, I don't know. It made me feel kind of uneasy.
Yeah, no, definitely. You'd never see that today. And yeah, that was a real deformed cow. I mean, yeah, there are still movies like Cannibal Holocaust I haven't seen because I heard there is like some animal cruelty in that movie. I could handle anything happening to people. That's no problem, but animals is a different thing. But yeah, it is pretty disturbing.
Yeah, I don't know why. That just it made me. I was like, looking at it. It's like it had like a chain around its like brain almost. I was like, ugh. I know it's
Mhm.
real, so that's why it's freaking me out even more.
And the cow almost reminds me of like the main creature, like
Mm-hmm.
the main villain. Did you think of that too?
Well, it's got the cleft palate, and it's. I mean, that's the only thing that I saw kind of in similar, but
It just made me think like what is the connection between this deformed cow and this monster? Like, was it his mother or something like that? You know, because
oh god,
the creature is almost like more of a beast than man.
yeah. We got to talk about the beast because I have some questions for you. So I guess to get to the beast, to get to the thing that really matters, the monster who's dressed in a Frankenstein monster mask is trying to get laid. So he's got, was it the fortune teller or just another woman at the carnival? Who was that?
Yeah, it was a fortune teller.
Okay, so she's really mean, but she's willing to have sex with this guy for $100. So he pays $100. She like grabs his dick for like 2 seconds, premature ejaculates, and then she's like, "Hey, you paid $100. That sucks." And he doesn't. The monster freaks out because for some reason he cares about money. So he's like, "This is bullshit. I want my money back."
Well, he has a father that he needs to answer to, and that's really his father's money. His father's like the carnival barker.
Oh my god, that just clicked. That when at the end when he's or not the end when he opens the box or whatever, he's like, "Where's my money?" That was the money.
Mhm.
Was that? Oh,
Yes.
oh, okay. I'm an idiot. Never mind. So that's why he cares about the money. So wait. So but what if he didn't? Come too quick? Like then he still would have had to pay her.
I think in the moment he was willing to make that sacrifice, but
Okay, yeah. Because I was like, all right, anyway. So yeah. So he loses the $100 and decides, well, I'm gonna kill her now, basically.
Mhm.
And does it immediately, just super quick. Rips her boobs out for some reason, and then shoves her into I don't know, like electrical socket or whatever, and blows her up. Which the father comes down, sees that, gets really mad at him because the money's gone. He killed a member of their quote unquote family, and then the 4 teenagers are observing this, and then they drop their lighter through the floor, and then that sets it all off.
Yeah. And this is the like oh shit moment that I was talking about, you know.
Yeah,
And I'm not exactly sure why the kids decide to spend the night in the funhouse.
yeah,
Well, I guess I do. They're all trying to get laid, right? Is that what's going on?
yeah. Isn't that one guy 30 though? Like, does he not have a house?
Yeah, they seem older. Like they seem like they could probably find someplace a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, this is what they decide to do. And can we just talk about for a moment the funhouse itself because I absolutely love it. Like, and even in real life, like haunted houses like this where you get in a little motorized cart and it brings you by these animatronics. I've been on a few of these in my life. They have one in Coney Island and I just absolutely love them. And even when they're in movies, like we talked about Ed Wood, like in Ed Wood, he goes on one of these with Patricia Arquette and House of a Thousand Corpses has a great one. And yeah, I mean, the thing I love most about this movie is just like the art direction. Like
Mm-hmm.
the actual funhouse itself, I think is just absolutely gorgeous. It makes me think of like we talked about Creep Show and that kind of vibrant Italian influence, you know. It looks
Mm-hmm.
like a Dario Argento movie or like something straight out of EC Comics. Like this is everything to me. The whole art direction of the funhouse, like this makes the movie for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like its own character, and it really shows the contrast from Texas Chainsaw Massacre to this, where like the
Mhm.
the atmosphere is so important to the movie, but it's so different than the
Yeah.
shitty chicken bones and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Really quick, do you know what Lake Cowpounce is in Connecticut?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was there.
You know the haunted house in that one?
No, I mean I was like a baby probably last time I was there.
Okay, so dude, Eric and I go a lot. They have a haunted graveyard in October. They really deck it out for Halloween. It's actually really fun. So it's called Lake Count Bounce. It's in Bristol, Connecticut, and it's an amusement park. But they have a haunted mansion ride there where you shoot ghosts and stuff like that, and it's it's fun. It's one of the things we're talking about. Last time when Eric and I went in October of this past year, it broke and we got stuck on it for like 30 minutes, dude. And we're just like, and then like people were coming in like, hey, just sit tight for a second, we'll get you out of here, sort of thing. And we're like, okay, and we're just like sitting there, and the ghost just kept being like, bah! And then we'd go away, and then be like, bah! And just we're like, it wouldn't stop. So I have a video of it actually I took because we were in there for so long. But that could have been the end for us, Joe. I don't know.
Good thing you hadn't seen this movie yet, or you might have been freaking out.
Right? Seriously, I would have been like, dude, I know this is kind of funny, but like, there's a movie about this, and people actually get killed in these situations.
I mean, I love what Hooper did with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's one of my all-time favorite horror movies, but this is like, it's just so much different than that, and I feel like there's just so much more craft on display here than really any other slasher movie around this time.
I haven't seen a ton of early 80s like standalone slashers. I'm really more into the franchise, and I feel like I definitely need to educate myself a little bit more, but this one really, the whole time I was watching it, I enjoyed it. Obviously, I like 80s films, and I'm a little bit biased towards them, but I don't know, man. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, and in fairness to those other 80s slasher movies, this movie was made by a major studio, Universal Studios. Its budget was like $3 million, which is significantly more than things like, I don't know, The Prowler or House on Sorority Row, just to give you a couple titles if you want to check those out.
Right.
Just for comparison. I mean, most of those movies were shot really down and dirty, but it shows you not everything could be just like micro budget. If you give a good director some real money, like sometimes you get really cool shit. Like this couldn't have been done the same way on, Halloween's budget.
No. I mean, yeah, Halloween's what, $300,000? So it's like,
yeah.
Now we got $3 million a couple years later. Okay, well, on the budget then, and I guess we can get into the monster now. Dude, so the monster, when we see him, he's got this Frankenstein monster mask on or whatever. He takes it off to reveal another mask. But it's supposed to be his face, but like, dude, it doesn't look that good, I didn't think. I don't know. I was like, I felt like, this is the same year as American Werewolf in London. I'm like, you've got $3 million and this is the mask we're getting?
It's funny you bring American Werewolf in London up because I think Rick Baker did this mask. I could be wrong about that, but I think he did. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the mask?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks like a Halloween mask. I'm not going to argue with you. I think it's just kind of grown on me because I have such fondness for this movie. But yeah, I think I just worked it out in my head that he is somehow related to this cow. He's like part man, part cow, which is really disturbing. Like, I don't even want to think about what the carnival barker, his father, was doing with this cow to make this person. Oh, so yeah, I mean, I definitely see where you're coming from.
I thought it was another mask at first. I mean, obviously it's a mask, but I thought I'm like, wait, does he have another mask on? Like, who is this guy? And then the mouth started moving a little bit, but I don't think it ever blinked. I don't think. So I was just kind of like, okay. And the screams were pretty scary. I like the screams, but I will say I found out that the guy that plays him, like the actual like physical guy, who's a mime. So like I did like the way his body like contorted and stuff. Like that was pretty cool, but I just couldn't get over the mask kind of being dumb.
And let me tell you, I definitely sympathized with him. I felt for him similar to how you feel for Leatherface. Yes. Like he's kind of abused by his father. And I mean, Tobe Hooper just has this uncanny ability to make really disturbing shit funny sometimes too. Like I just rewatched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so it's on my brain. And when Leatherface is getting scolded for ruining the door, because he tore the door down with his chainsaw, like there's something just so darkly hilarious about that. And in this movie, when the carnival barker is like, you were gonna give her $100. He's like, I could have got you one of those other girls.
Yeah, for $15.
Yeah, it's just like really dark, but just really hilarious. Like, I feel like Rob Zombie tries to capture this kind of, really dark hillbilly comedy, and sometimes he succeeds, but like, to me, this movie nails it.
Dude, I mean, that's the thing. When I was watching this, just like with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, these don't feel like actors. Like, the guy that was playing the father or whatever, I was like, this guy just seems like he could be somebody you find. And that's what I loved about 80s and 70s movies, slashers, everything like that. You didn't need to get a recognizable person for every single role. You didn't need to have a character actor. It was just kind of like, I just feel like they found these people, like Crazy Ralph from Friday the 13th. I feel like that's just a guy. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, but nowadays it feels like it would be some character actor. You'd be like, oh, that's a guy from that CW show. Like, it's, and you don't believe it because they're too good looking and they don't look rough around the edges. This guy, full line and say, oh, you know what's another great example? Last House on the Left. Believe that those were real psychopaths. The remake, I'm like, that's fucking Aaron Paul. Like, no.
Yep. Yeah, that I agree 100%. Yeah, they don't bring any baggage with them, I don't think there's any better example than Last House on the Left is a great example, but the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that whole family. I mean, tell me they aren't really those people.
I know, dude. And then in the remake, it's the guy from Full Metal Jacket. You're like, I'm not as immersed because, like, I literally feels like we're watching a documentary because I don't know any of these actors. They're not big actors. But yeah, that's something that it's kind of getting into the voiceover industry too. Does Chris Pratt really need to be playing Mario? No, I'm just saying. But anyway, so that's what I really loved about Tobe Hooper's movies. Like, I just believed these characters. I don't know. Even in Poltergeist, like, I really believe the scumbag guy who sells the plots of land or whatever.
Oh yeah, but we've seen him before from Return of the Living Dead. He's fantastic.
Exactly. But I believe that guy.
Totally.
So basically, I want to say there's only 3 deaths or 4 deaths, I guess, including the lady that kicks it all off. The deaths were not anything super memorable to me, with the exception of the fan dude.
Yeah,
that scene was intense. Like, when the monsters basically got her cornered between a huge fan, and he's basically gonna rape her, and she's trying to defend herself. That scene really freaked me out, man.
Yeah, now that you mention it, there aren't really any Tom Savini kind of crazy deaths. If you're coming to this movie after a couple of Friday the 13th, you might be a little disappointed. But what sells it for me is just, I mean, I kind of already went over this, but the funhouse itself.
Yeah.
Like, that girl who dies by the fan, like, she falls down a trap door, and one kid, like, he just gets strung up all of a sudden by a rope, and like, the funhouse becomes this, like, labyrinth. I mean, how big is this place? It's just like a carnival attraction, but when they're inside it becomes like this massive factory. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but I love it. It's like they're trapped in a nightmare.
You're right, because it's like a pop-up carnival. It's not there year-round, but yet it has, like, a functioning fan in a trap door, like, all this stuff. Like, and then she gets killed by that fan. She gets chopped up, she didn't look like she got chopped up by a fan. But whatever.
Yeah, wouldn't they need to, like, disassemble this thing and put it on a truck or something?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, who's paying for all that?
Later in the movie, it looks like she's in the basement, and there's, like, chains and all. It looks like she's in some kind, like, Freddy's boiler room. But I love it. Like, I don't hold it against the movie. Like, it just enters this surreal place where, is this even real anymore? I don't know.
Okay, so I have a tiny little kernel of a sequel idea, and I don't really know if we should have a sequel to this, but what if, the woman who's like, God is watching or whatever, because she's there at the end or whatever, what if this is only one of many fun houses or whatever, and there's, like, the puppet master, the god or whatever's watching, and, there's another fun house in another town or whatever, and he's trying to, like, open it up. So I feel like they really could have made a franchise out of this, like, being upset about how this one went down, because we were talking about how it has to pick up and go somewhere. Somebody has to be paying for this. I know these people can probably afford it, but they're going to be on, like, pickup trucks and shit. They're not going to be able to really organize. So what if there was this, like, evil funhouse organization that was all over the country?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's so many fun characters in this movie. You might not have even noticed this, but the carnival barker, the creature's father,
Yeah.
he plays three different roles in this movie. He is like in front of three different kind of like stations. Like he's in front of the strip tent, he's in front of the fun house, and he's somewhere else too.
Mm.
So it's almost like three brothers, or it almost gives the sense like it's just this kind of inbred family and everybody looks alike. But you could bring him back playing a different character, and yeah, they could have had a nice little franchise here. I think the problem was that this was somewhat expensive at $3 million, and it only made like less than 8.
Mm.
And in comparison to like what some of the Friday the 13th movies were pulling in, I can't imagine they were Universal Studios was impressed with that. So it was one and done.
Yeah, it seems like what really helps franchises have a longevity is having that staple killer character. So, and having it be
Mm-hmm.
memorable. Like, I mean, obviously Friday 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween. It's just one dude. We know his name. We know his face. That's enough. This one, yeah, they killed off the guy that really stands out. So it would have been tough
Mm-hmm.
to capture that magic again.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. So, do you have any other thoughts on this one?
Not too much. I mean, I'm just glad we're talking a little more Tobe Hooper. We
Yeah.
we covered Salem's Lot, and I feel like you know he maybe doesn't have the reputation of a John Carpenter, but I think he absolutely deserves his reputation as a master of horror. Did you guys cover Poltergeist?
We did, yeah.
And did you guys cover any of the like kind of controversy about that, about how like Spielberg, a lot of people say that Spielberg really deserved director's credit. Did you guys talk about that at all?
I don't remember.
I feel like that kind of rumor has followed Hooper around for a lot of his career. There's just this kind of rumor that really Steven Spielberg was the true director of Poltergeist, and I hear it on podcasts, and actually I was going through an old Fangoria recently from like the early '90s, and they talked about it there. So
Hmm.
this has been around for a long time, and it just kind of sucks because look, Spielberg isn't asking for that credit. So for a lot of people to be trying to take credit away from a guy who deserves more and thrust it on literally the most celebrated director of all time, it
Yeah.
just kind of rubs me the wrong way. And even if you take Poltergeist out of the equation, like Texas Chainsaw, Salem's Lot, The Funhouse, like, I mean, just on those alone, and I think he did some other pretty cool movies too. Just on those alone, the guy's pretty much a genius. So, yeah, just always glad to, shine a little light his way.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I didn't know about Steven Spielberg and his history, but every single thing I've ever seen him done, I enjoy. Tobe Hooper
Mhm.
is in my mind. I mean, literally, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is. You ask like 9 out of 10 horror fans are like, that's my favorite one. Like everybody
Mhm.
loves that one, and it set the stage for the rest of the '70s of just what gross slasher movies were gonna come. So I don't know. I think he's amazing, and yeah, you're right. He doesn't get the kind of credit he deserves. He doesn't have that Wes Craven, John Carpenter kind of like gravitas to his name. But if you're a horror fan, you
Mhm.
know who he is.
Yeah.
It sucks he died so young. I think he was like in his 60s. Oh, 74.
Yeah, it was in 2017. But yeah, I almost think like every year that goes by, I feel like some of these horror veterans from the past that maybe some people haven't thought about in a while are kind of being reevaluated and appreciated in their old age. You know what I mean? I feel like it's happened with Carpenter. I just saw actually Joe Dante at a screening
Mm,
of his movie Matinee, and like he was talking about how like a lot of these movies he made were flops when they came out, but now they're being rediscovered, and I think that was already happening for Tobe Hooper, and obviously Texas Chainsaw has always had a huge fan base, but I like to think if he were still around today, maybe he would continue to see that his movies are being discovered every day, just like you discovered the Funhouse recently.
I know. I've seen 5 of his movies or so, and I don't know. I love him.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I don't know. You got any last minute thoughts, or shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I'm glad we finally got to it.
Me too, dude. So yeah, we'll cover. Well, why don't we throw Martin on the next wheel? You want to do that one?
Yes, George Romero's Martin. Yes, definitely.
All right, perfect. So yeah, the new wheel is coming up. I have 2 movies left. So after this one, there's new wheels coming out. So we'll make sure we throw Martin on that one.
Cool.
All right. So let me spin the wheel. Underworld. All right. Kate Beckinsale, 2003. Fun times. You've seen it, right, Joe?
I have. I saw it in theaters. I heard you're a huge fan.
I haven't seen it yet, actually. So I'm gonna check it out, but we'll see how it goes. I have a feeling I might not like it. But everybody, thank you very much for listening into our discussion on the Funhouse today. If you haven't had a chance, we released our episode on Scream 6 and Orphan last week. And we will see you guys all next week with Underworld. But Joe, thank you so much for coming back and for recommending this movie too, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's talk soon.
All right, guys, have a good one, and we'll see you next week with Underworld.